Okay, welcome back to NixTube. I'm going to do a video here that reviews filters, layer styles, and layer modes. So the project that we're currently working on in class happens to be a self-portrait, so I'm going to use my self-portrait, or the piece that I'm working on that is a self-portrait, as an example here. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to create a new document, right? When we're working in class, we're going to be printing these things eventually, and so I want you to use a print size document for letter. It should be 8.5 by 11 and 300 pixels per inch. You can choose if you'd rather have landscape or portrait. I'm going to stay with portrait because it's a self-portrait. All right, so here we are, my new blank document. I took two photos of myself, one with my phone, which is a Google Pixel 3, and one with the computer on my the photo booth on the Mac that I've got. So both of these, I'm using Photoshop 2021. I know that some students at home will be using Photopea, or some people might be using Photopea, a free version. So I want to go in here and I'm going to first select myself, right? Part of what we're going to be doing in class is getting really good selections. So I could use the quick selection tool to kind of paint over the area that I want to select. And in here, Photoshop is kind of, I can add and subtract from the selection. And Photoshop is kind of trying to find the edges and do it for me. Or here I am in the pixel. Different other ways that I can select things is you've got the object selection tool. And when you click and drag with the object selection tool, it should define within that square, within that shape. See how it selected my head there? But I want to show you in Photoshop 2021, there is a new command here under the select menu. If you go to select subject, Photoshop does a pretty dynamite job of selecting the subject for you. Now it's selected it pretty well, actually very well. I have any one of these selection tools highlighted, and that will give me the option for the select and mask. The reason why I say any one of the selection tools, because you have the move tool, that select and mask option goes away. So any one of the other selection tools, while I have an active selection, I can click on select and mask, and what this allows me to do is to fine tune my selection. On the right hand side here, you can look at your image against different backgrounds, right? I like it against the black because it really shows me what those edges will look like. And if there's a part that I missed or I needed to add or include, the opacity of how light or dark that background is over here. But if there's anything that I missed or I needed, like maybe it's like a little bit hairy over here by my ear, so like how do I fix that? Well, on the left-hand side, remember I'm in the refine and mask option here, you can add or subtract from your selection. So I could subtract from the selection using this one right here using the brush, and that's going to let me clean up my edge a little bit. Now I could do that once I bring it into my new document too. I could use my eraser to do that, but sometimes it's just better to do it here before you move it, right? Because then you know that you've got that really dynamite, very clean selection. All right. So that is selected. The reason why I'm pulling this and I created that new document. I'm going to pull this into my new document. So this is the one, again, I said I took with my phone, right? So that's a Pixel 3. It's probably got a high setting. This is one that I took with my laptop, right? With the camera that was there. So if I go to select subject here, it actually does a pretty good job with this as well. This is the most powerful subject selecting option out there right now. I'm not going to refine it at all. I'm just going to move it so you can see the difference. And even though, look how small that is in resolution rise, right? Because if it took the picture with my computer, then the most it could be would be 72 pixels per inch, right? That's highest resolution there. So let me put those two next to each other. If I zoom in, you can see the resolution difference between those two photos. So if it's possible, you should be using your phone or some other source to take those photos from. All right. So I'm going to close these guys out. I'm going to jump over to the document. I've already started a document, and I've got a lot of stuff going on in here already. So I've got me. I've got a bunch of different things. I named my layers. Congratulations, Nix. I named my layers for once, and that's a good thing. So the next thing I did or I added is I wanted a background. So I found this newspaper background. Really quickly, I want to jump over and talk a little bit about the types of images you should be choosing to search with when you are doing a search, right? So let me grab a Google search over here. Sorry, I had to throw that on my other screen. And let's say I wanted, I put in old newspaper. before, right? So I want images of newspaper, right? And I can even do tools, I could do size, and I could go large. We're working in a high resolution image, so all the images that you use in it should be large as well. Let's take out old. I can make it look old when I bring it into Photoshop. Let's just look for newspapers. And then you also have this one right here where it says usage rights, like what am I able to use, right? Commercial and other licenses means that I would have to pay to use that image. Creative Commons licenses means that you can use it if you give credit, if they're asking, if they want you to give credit where the credit is due, or that you're going to be modifying or changing that image to some extent, some massive extent, actually. So these are all ones that I could choose from. Personally, I love sites like Pixabay is one of them. Pexels is another one. This is free stock videos, photos. There's a ton of stuff in here, and most of these are completely free to use, right? So if I wanted a tiger, right? So I typed in tiger. Here, right now I'm looking, did I go to Pexels videos? I don't want Pexels videos. Let's go back to, here we go. There was right there, is at the very top. Photos and videos. I want a tiger. Here we go. Here's tiger, so I can click on it. It's a free download. Sometimes they want you to give credit, but if they don't, then you don't need to give credit. You're probably just using a portion of the image along with something else anyways. All right, so let's go to my newspaper. I want to tone down my background. I want this to be more about me. So I'm going to create a new layer. There's my new layer icon right there. And in that new layer, I'm going to put a gradient, right? I love gradients as a way to just kind of create blends and kind of make things look more subtle. I clicked on the gradient tool. It is paired with the paint bucket, right? In case you were using the paint bucket before. And let me go up to my option bar, and then these are different gradients that I can use. Now I like the idea of the gray gradients, the gray to blue. But if I want to change the color, right, or add a color, I want to add a color, so I just added a color right there. Or if I want to take a color off, like, nah, I don't really like that color. Or if I just want to change the color and modify it a little bit, right? Let's go a little bit lighter. I want to make this one actually just a little bit lighter as well. So let's go a little bit lighter. I want it to be so dark. So it's kind of like gray blue, right? These are the different styles of gradients. I do have modes or opacity that I can play with, but it's going on its own layer anyways. Let's name that layer. Double click to name a layer. So now I got a gradient layer, and I'm going to use the first one, which is linear, and I'm just going to click and drag to drop it down there. All right, well, I kind of like that gradient. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to blend the gradient with the newspaper. So one of the requirements for my project here is to use the layer mode. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to scroll down, and this is what happens when that looks kind of cool, when my newspaper kind of blends with that gradient layer that's above. I like the idea of being able to see the newspaper, the gradients that are there. Ooh, I kind of like that too. Yeah, I think we found our winner, right? So one of those is going to be one, that's something that you might like, right? That's kind of blending those two together. All right. The next thing I want to do is I want to use maybe some layer styles, right? That was another requirement. So I've got some other objects here. Here's an elephant with her babe, right? I want to put this in here somehow. Remember that the layers in the layers panel, it matters where the layers are. Here's some computers that I wanted to add into my piece as well. So I want some computers to kind of show, I don't know where. There's certain words up there that I want to have shown, right? Let's have the elephant. I'm going to put the elephant down here. Let's move it above me. And then I'm going to rotate it a little bit so they look like they're walking kind of on my shoulder. Let me shrink them up a little bit. They're a little bit too big. And remember that if you're using Photoshop 2021, right, when you change the size of things, it changes it proportionally. I don't have to hold shift like you used to. If you're using Photo P, however, you do have to hold shift. That is important. All right, so other things, I got a plant here. I like plants. I'm using the plant to cover up the bottom of the computer there where I kind of am missing a part of it. Okay, so another requirement of this project is layer styles. To apply a layer style, you can go down to the bottom of your layers panel and click on the FX, right, and click on blending options. That's one way to do it, or I could have just double clicked in my layers panel, in that layers panel as well. So when you're in here, remember that you can click these and it's adding those effects, but I don't have any options to change those effects. This guy is what it's going to look like at the very end. I don't want an orange stroke. So make sure that when you click on the word to apply, right? You're applying the item there. And then once you do that, once you click on the word, you have all your options to change or affect things on the inside here, right? If I just clicked on this, it adds it. It does not give me the option to make any changes to it. So I just want a subtle kind of drop shadow on that. Remember that you can repeat effects, right? If I hold Option or Alt on the keyboard and click and drag on a layer effect, I can put it on something else as well. I just put it on myself. I just put a slight drop shadow on myself, so that's kind of cool. Okay, layer styles, layer modes, filters, right? Filters, I'm kind of combining two things at once. Filters are up here, right? There's different filters that you can use if you go into filter gallery, but you kind of don't want to put, you might want to put an effect on the whole thing at once at the end, right? So a filter like this is going to go on at the end. But the other thing I want to show you was the image adjustments, right? In here, you've got all like minor adjustments that you can do to the image. So let's say, for example, that I thought this plant was too bright. It's pretty bright, right? There's a lot of lightness coming from a bunch of different directions. And it's actually opposite the brightness on me. So if I wanted to go image, adjustments, brightness, contrast, and I want to take that brightness down just a tad, right? So it looks more like kind of, I don't know, like realistic in that space. Right now this plant is like floating in nowhere, but I can move it anywhere, right? I can even rotate it a little bit and kind of have it kind of come off here. Maybe I want to nestle the plant inside my head shape, right? That's something I can do as well. Let's say I wanted to cut, I'm going to zoom in here. I want to cut my head open. Not literally, just in Photoshop here, right? So I'm on the layer of me, and I want to select half of my head and take it off. I don't want to erase it because I don't know exactly what I want to do with it just yet. So this is a tool that I use often, right? I'm going to use this lasso tool, and I want to do just kind of like a free draw. I want to cut this whole part of my head off, right? Command X is going to cut it, so I just cut it off. I'm going to create a new layer. And I'm going to do Command V and paste it back in. I'm on a Mac, so that's why mine is Command, right? Yours might be Control, especially if you're on a PC, I believe. All right, so there I've got my open head, right? So now I can put things inside the head. One last thing I want to show you here, because I've got these different layers. Let's go to this bottom head layer, right? See how it's a very hard line, right? There's a hard line there. Let's say I wanted a softer line. We're going to have one of the things that we're doing in the current project that this applies to, right, the Surreal self-portrait, is we want to have some things that blend. So what I want you to notice I've got my eraser tool. Let me come up over here. I've got the hardness on the brush set all the way down, right? So let me turn it up really quick. I want to show you what that looks like. I'm turning the opacity up too. That is 100% hard, right? It's got that really hard edge on it. So I don't want that. I want it to be softer. Let's soften it up a little bit. Now what happens if I kind of paint along this edge? So what I can do is I can remove that kind of harsh outline. And because I've got that drop shadow, right, now my face looks so much more 3D because you can see that little shadow that's in there as well. So this is kind of a neat way to make things kind of blend to make things blend. Oh, my forehead's awfully shiny. Make things blend together. Kind of fade off the edges just a little bit. Right? That's a great technique for that. So now if I want to take the plant and put it inside my head, right? Let's slide it between those two right there. There it is. Oh, let's go behind me. But above this. It's behind me, but above this. I don't think I can do that. Unless I cut it in half. I wanted the plant to kind of go beyond. But let's say I did this. Now you can see the plant kind of through it. You can see the difference there between the hard edge and the soft edge, right? Those two different options that are up there. All right, some other things that I've got in here, right? I want to put something inside my cup. All right, so I found this kind of cool drip. Look at that. I want to extend this drip right here. So I want to show you something that I use often to kind of spread things out a little bit, right? If I go to this layer, I want to select just this part of the layer. Watch this, I'm going to select just this part of the layer. Then I'm going to grab my move tool. I only have that part of the layer selected right now. And holding shift, I'm going to click and drag to stretch that out. Something else that you can do is you can copy it. I'm going to go I want to go all the way up to the top. So it looks like it's just dripping right down into my cup. Now, if it had, I don't know, if it had more details to that, that might not have worked so well, but I think that is actually going to work pretty well because it's just different colors of coffee. It's liquid, so that kind of works. I don't know if I'm crazy about that, but I'm going to leave it for right now. All right, one other thing I went and found, right, as you're finding things, is I went and found these clouds, right? So you would think that there's a few different ways that you can add something like this, something this ethereal, right? And that kind of breaks up the space a little bit as well. So let me maybe I want to place this right about there, right? Or here's another one I've got right here. Now, how in the heck do you select a cloud? Well, it's not easy. It is not easy to select a cloud. So I've got two different things. First of all, I got two different clouds on here because the last thing you want is the same type of image over and over again. But what I did is I jumped over to the internet, right, and I searched for specifically, let's go back to here. I went to, let me look for a cloud, and I put in, cloud PNG, right? A PNG image, right? Most of the time has a transparent background to it. So if I go to images, now I'm looking at cloud images, right? And some are going to work and some are not. The ones that have the black behind them, right? If I click on that, it should turn transparent in just a moment. If I give it a moment, see how it's high resolution. That black is showing because it is transparent. Those little gray and white checks are there. And I know now that if I pull this into Photoshop to use, there it is. It's already transparent on the background. That's awesome. That will save you a lot of time because you can look for transparent PNGs when you're trying to look for the different things that you want to put within this piece. So that's kind of cool as well. So we're kind of just starting to build the image, right? We're just building the image and putting different effects and things in there. The other thing that you could use for, I don't know why it doesn't want to go to the internet every time. Let me go to brushking.eu. This is a great free brush website. And they pretty much have brushes for everything, but I could be using a cloud brush. That's also an option, right? Rather than trying to find a cloud PNG. So let's see if I wanted a cloud brush. I'm going to click on that. It says it's high res, so that's good. Let's download it. And then remember to get a brush into Photoshop, right? Let me show it in the Finder here. I have to find the file, and I'm going to double click on the file. And then it will open it right there in Photoshop. Okay. So it should have opened that file right there in Photoshop. Let me grab my paintbrush. And if I go and I scroll through here, right, all the way down at the bottom, you'll see that I've got these civilian cloud brushes here. So these are other ways that I can do the brush. And we're going to get more into brushes and brush types with our next project. But I think right now that's a good starting point. So you've got layer styles, right? Layer styles add effects to layers. I got layer styles on here. Layer modes will blend layers together. I blended layers here. I found this cool coffee beans. If I brought that up to the top, oops, I forgot these cool coffee beans. I figured I was going to use these somehow. I don't know how yet, right? I might just use them as an additional layer in the background there, right? Maybe I don't know, maybe I'll put them in my cup. I don't know. Ooh, that's kind of fun. Maybe I want to sandwich them all together. Layer styles, layer modes, filters, right? You can add filters here. And then the last thing I just showed you was brushes. All right, have fun. I can't wait to see those portraits.